think we could have our next named storm in the next few hours.
And to be honest, just right out the gate, I'm more interested in our spot to watch than Dalila.
Right, yeah, because that one's it looks like that one may actually hug the western Mexican coastline a little tighter.
And a lot more warm water to get through.
Yeah.
So the territory, that span of warm water, there's going to be a lot more exposure than our tropical depression, which, by the way, is anticipated to be Dalila. The name after that would be Eric, so we'll see how we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But, I mean, every single spot that's been highlighted by the National Hurricane Center in the East Pac has produced a verified storm. We haven't wasted one.
No, we really have not. And it's just the waters are so warm and everything is so conducive. It's really interesting to see how supercharged the Eastern Pacific is right now. You look at as of the 11 o'clock advisory. And I'll say this, they of course upgraded it, you may have noticed, from a tropical storm watch to tropical storm warnings for parts of western Mexico. Acapulco, I mean, if you got cruise or vacation destinations out that way, could be a rough next 24 to 72 hours.
And in this type of a setup, this coastline of Mexico is fortified. So a tropical storm you can get through. You'd be riding it out at the resort, but that's not what you want when you've booked your dream vacation by any means. But yeah, the Mexican government highlighting that they're concerned that a few of those tropical storm force wind gusts could brush the shore, which is why they've issued the tropical storm warning.
Yeah, and you look at it on visible or enhanced satellite imagery, and you can clearly see where that little spin is right there. I wouldn't be surprised if this actually started to generate the 35, 40, 45 mile per hour winds sooner than later. In fact, you look at where this is located, and again, there's a little bubble of heat that it's still going to be able to work with.
You know, I would say the next 24 to 36 hours, because the winds are going to be coming up. You know, we just are waiting for that designation to a tropical storm, so our winds are at 35. Looks like the peak for this storm over the next 36 hours could get us maybe to 60 mile per hour winds, so staying a tropical storm.
Yeah, staying a tropical storm, but nevertheless, though, you look at the influences and impacts on the west side of Mexico, and I was looking at it, the National Weather Service, or the equivalent to it in Mexico, saying that we could see isolated spots of 2 to 4 inches, perhaps even as much as 6 inches of rain, which in this area, if you've ever been, is super hilly. Mudslides, landslides, rock slides, a huge problem.
And weaker tropical systems are known for really packing a punch when it comes to rainfall. You know, especially when you throw in the fact that you have topography, that could make it worse. It's going to stay offshore. Again, peak winds around 60 miles per hour. That would be happening on the morning of Father's Day. And then it's going to be at the same demise as Alvin, Cosme, and Barbara. It works into cooler water very quickly, which is why I am interested in watching in that spot that's farther to the south. It's the farthest south development zone that we've been given by the National Hurricane Center, and it just gives a lot more opportunity to be working into that warm water for a longer amount of time. Yeah,
it's going to be real interesting to watch. Just to kind of put a bow on things here, you can see, of course, where the tropical storm warnings are in red. And interestingly enough, too, I am concerned about that chance for some rip currents and some undertows. So if you're thinking about heading to the beach, watch out for it.
But the water conditions have been awful since Alvin, to be honest, because all these storms have been back to back to back. We've had rough surf for a very, you know, pure destination. I mean, everybody wants to go to Acapulco or Puerto Vallarta. I'd like to go.
Same here, but I mean, when you're talking about, you know, big time waves and surf action, those undertows, those can literally be life-threatening. But this is what you were talking about, this other enhanced area that we're watching just off the coast of El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras. This is an area that we got to watch. Look at where it's heading. Or what the general facility. This is
90-degree water.
Really, this is bad
for you know, hundreds of miles. We got a lot of territory to cover. If it forms farther down to the south, and again, we're talking with such confidence because every area has led to a tropical storm. So that's been the trend that the East Pac has been delivering. But this zone means that development can happen anywhere. It can happen up by Guatemala. It can happen out in the open water, down south, a little bit farther up to the north by Mexico. So wherever we do start to see some organization really dictates the future moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, what your general thoughts are. I was looking at a couple of, you know, forecast trend lines for what could be, Eric. And it looks to me like if this thing forms, at least the models that I was looking at, that means just a representation of the atmosphere in a future state, looked like it could hug a little closer to the Mexican coastline, which could bring more rain, you know.
Bigger impacts.
Bigger impacts.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of honestly seeing this with Dalila. The trend has shown a little more of a push to the east, which is why we do have the tropical storm warning out in regards to what will most likely become Dalila. It's pretty certain at this point. So, you know, trends are your friend when it comes to forecasting. Doesn't mean it provides friendly weather, but usually once you start to see movement, it kind of cascades into farther development towards that trend. So that push getting closer to the Mexican coastline, I can see why the computer models are kind of going with that potential of seeing something else develop.
Yeah, Britta, something tells me it's going to be a busy week for us in the next
Yes,
week or so.
yeah.
So, of course, Fox Weather, your Hurricane HQ, will be on top of it every step of the way.